Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast Retro Life for You, movies of the 1980s. My name is Chris. I'm your host of the show. And on his lunch break with us today, it's the quadruple Lindy man himself,
The Quad Lindy, baby,
Travis
coming
Rollins
from parts unknown.
from Parts Unknown. Yeah, I don't know what we did to deserve such an honor that you took your lunch break to talk to us today. I don't know if it's just that you think I'm just that great of a guy, or you just
Yeah,
like it, or you just really like you want to talk about this movie.
yeah, maybe it could be that. It could be that. It could be, yeah. We don't gotta go into it too much. They might not appreciate it if somebody finds out I was doing a podcast on my lunch break.
Oh, that's fine. So you don't really mean anything about me, right? I get no respect, man. I get no respect.
Yeah, that was the you get all kind of respect. I mean, I am taking my lunch break.
Take my
You know
wife.
what
Oh,
tripped me
really?
out?
Take my
Oh,
wife.
we ain't even. I can't even go into that yet. I was about to say something that tripped me out about this movie that we got coming up, but I want to wait before I say anything so we can talk about what movie it is
I,
before I get
I,
into. I was about to jump way ahead.
I know. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. We're actually recording a day late. We had some issues the
I
day
got
before,
excited.
so we are actually having to dig into our personal times here to get this one done tonight for sure.
Yeah, yeah, we're
Um,
about 2 or 3 hours earlier than what you're used to, and doggone, yeah.
yeah, it's all kind of crazy today. I'll go ahead and just give a brief synopsis here of the movie. So I said synopsis.
Tomato, tomato.
Tomato. You know what? I'm just going to tell you about the movie, okay?
Nevada, Nevada.
So back to school is what we're talking about this week. We thought it was appropriate since school is back in session for the kids and everything now. But
Oh
back to
yeah.
school, it's a beloved American comedy directed by Alan Metter, known for his work in other comedy films and TV shows during the 80s and 90s. The movie stars the legendary Rodney Dangerfield, who you no respect, as
No
Thornton
respect.
Melon, a wealthy but uneducated businessman who decides to enroll in college alongside his son to show him the importance of education. The film also features a strong supporting cast, including Sally Kellerman as the romantic interest Diane and Keith Gordon as Thornton's son Jason. Other notable
Mm-hmm.
performances include Robert Downey Jr. Believe it or not, he was
Yup,
all over. He
yup.
was all over the 80s, wasn't he?
He
As
was.
Jason's quirky best friend Derek, and in William Zabka, known for his roles as the quintessential 80s bully. No justice for Johnny this week, okay?
No justice for Johnny.
That's right, and he's also Jason's college rival. Additionally, the film includes a memorable appearance from Sam Kinison as a hot-headed history teacher and Ned Beatty as the college dean. Now, the
Yup.
movie itself was a commercial success, resonating with audiences for its humor, its heart, and of course, Rodney Dangerfield's iconic one-liners. Couldn't get enough of those. The movie was made at an estimated budget of $11 million, and it grossed approximately $91.3 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing comedies of 1986. The film
That's
remains a
pretty good.
favorite. Oh, it's excellent. The film remains a favorite amongst fans of 1980s comedies, celebrated for its witty script, its memorable characters, and Dangerfield's unforgettable performance. You were just talking earlier to me, earlier in the day when you was watching some of this. You said how
Hmm.
you really couldn't have appreciated it much as a kid because it's cracking you up when you were watching it now. It's like one of the greatest comedies
Yeah,
of an 80s comedy.
yeah. I would put it in. I mean, for '80s comedies, dude, I would put that one way high on my list because, yeah, and when I had seen it, bits and pieces of it before as a kid, it was. I don't know if I didn't get the humor or I just didn't like the style of what was going on or I didn't like Rodney Dangerfield or what. But yeah, going back and watching the entirety of the film for this, yeah, dude, it is phenomenal and absolutely hilarious. And somebody we
Yeah.
didn't mention, and that's what I was going to say. See, I can jump into it now, and it's funny because hey, let me tell you something. You know what I mean? Like when my wife, when she sits around the house, she really sits. You know what I mean? No respect, I
Right.
think. But then his driver was in the movie too with Sylvester Stallone. So you go from no respect to you go, hey, yo. I mean, it got kind of the same voice with
Uh,
a little more bass in one.
Hold on. Who did you say his driver was?
Paulie,
Yeah.
Paulie was the driver.
Yeah. You didn't say Paulie for a second. You said Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, no, I said the driver. He was in the movie with the Sylvester Stallone too.
Okay. Well, I didn't
So he
catch you
did the
saying it
movies.
that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Burt
Paulie was the
Young.
driver.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his
Burt Young.
name?
There's Burt
Burt
Young.
Young. And I have to say, I think Burt Young is a very underrated actor. He shows so much emotion and care in his performances. Like this whole movie's hilarious, and he had the most serious moment in it when he was telling him that he said, your pop's just trying to take care of you. You know, make sure you try to take care of him back." Like the look on his face and stuff. I was like, man, dude, Paulie, that's Paulie, man.
He's not worried about, oh, you give me Rock is this stupid watch. You know, what are you gonna do for me, man? There's
Yeah.
none of that going on here. Well, one of my favorite things with Burt Young in the movie though is they're in the like a restaurant where they're having some kind of like music playing in the background, everything. They're all celebrating, having fun. And one of the jocks come in that Robert Downey Jr.'s character had, I guess, poured some kind of a paint or something on somehow.
Right.
And he's there to take up matters with him. And so Dangerfield steps up. He's like, "Hey, we got a problem here. You know, what's going on? You know?" And he's like, "You know, basically he's inviting him into it. Do you want part of the trouble?" And he's like, "No." He goes, "I'm not much of a physical kind of guy. I'm more of a, what was he called it? More of a,
I don't remember.
It wasn't the one where he said he's a lover, not a fighter. It was something else."
Yeah.
He goes, "But I do get mad. And when I get mad, he gets mad. You take it up with him." And then Burt Young's like, "Do we got a problem here?" He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
no, man." He goes, "Well, now you do."
Well, now you do.
And then the fight ensues. So,
Heck yeah.
oh,
yeah, that was when they fought like the whole football team or something.
Yes. And Dangerfield's like, "You know, the football team when I was in school was me. When they sacked the quarterback, they went after his family afterwards."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the best Burt Young, if that was the best Burt Young scene, or when Dangerfield gets him to go out there and hold up a sign saying Bruce Springsteen out in front of the limo.
Yeah.
So all the kids waiting to pick their classes would run out there. So him and his son and the rest
They
of them
could just walk in and get registered.
Yeah, well, that was crazy. Where's he at? Where's he at? I don't know. I'm still supposed to pick him up. When?
Yeah.
Now.
Now.
But very memorable for his role here, Paxton Whitehead. Nobody really liked Dr. Bombay.
Right.
And it's funny when I think of Dr. Bombay. Before I saw this movie the first time, I heard somebody else talking about it on a different podcast. They kept saying Dr. Bombay, and all I could think of was Bewitched.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they called the guy, calling Dr. Bombay, and he would appear out of nowhere, you know, and do what he had to do. And this guy is one of the most annoying professors. It seemed like that air of arrogance about him and everything. I really did not like his character that much. Like I said, it's memorable. You're not going to forget it. But
well, he was supposed to be the bad guy too, though.
Right, he is.
He was the opposition.
He did a great job of being the bad guy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dangerfield. Now, why did Dangerfield? He gets into college to show his son the importance of an education, but when he gets there,
well, he sort of. So I like the way the movie opened up, like back in the 40s or whatever, when he was a kid, and his dad had the clothing shop or whatever, and his dad was telling him the importance of it, and he said, "Well, I want to follow in your footsteps." Well, then fast forward in the movie, and he shows up. He goes through his divorce or whatever. He shows up to surprise his kid. His kid wants to drop out, and he's like, "Well, you don't know how hard it is." He said, "Well, then I'll do it with you." So he decided to do it with him to support him. Like it was to show him the importance of it. But he's like, "Well, you know, it can't be that hard. I'll do it with you then. Like we'll do it together."
And what about the role played by William Zabka in this? I mean, it's the usual typical role he was given in the 80s, but he played that part so well, though.
Which one was he?
William Zabka. He was the
son.
No. William Zabka was the opposition of the son on the swim team. He was the competition.
Oh, that's the one you were talking about, Dr. Bombay.
No. Dr. Bombay was the professor that didn't like the fact that Dangerfield's character Thornton Melon was in school. I said William Zabka.
So was he the dean?
Really?
I don't have my computer in front of me, people. I'm sorry.
I
don't know who William Zabka is.
Yeah, you do. Johnny from the Cobra Kai, Karate Kid.
Oh, that was Johnny, the
Yes,
other diver.
the blonde headed kid.
Are you serious? I didn't
Yeah.
even notice that, dude.
Oh, how could you not really? You really could. You didn't catch that? He,
No, I swear to God, I didn't.
back in those days, that's what he played. He was always given the role of the high school bully. In the movie,
Yeah,
she's just one of the guys or something. He's the bully in that too.
that's terrible. That's terrible. I can't believe I didn't know that was Johnny.
Oh man, see, look, no justice. That's why I said no justice for Johnny.
No justice for Johnny.
He was the bully for sure. He got what he
Yeah, he
deserved.
did that. Yeah, he played it perfectly. I can't believe I didn't realize that was him, dude. He
But
was way more jacked in this one than he was in Karate Kid.
now look, you go back and watch it again, or go back and look at his character again. Now, when you get a chance later, when you get home, and you're gonna look at it
Mhm.
and you're gonna go, "How did I not know that was
Yeah, that's
him?"
crazy.
But yeah, William Zabka.
Yeah,
I,
he's good. I like him in everything,
well, he just
especially Cobra Kai.
he played that part so well though.
Yeah,
When he was younger, that was a role he was just born to play, I guess.
right.
Because I don't think you could have seen him playing it. Just to jump ship for a second to Karate Kid, since we're talking about Zabka, you couldn't really
Hmm.
see him playing the role of Daniel. He wouldn't have really
No,
pulled that off, right? I don't think
yeah,
anyway.
he was
He had
too
that.
nice of a guy to play Daniel.
No, it's not. It's his overall attitude he's
Daniel,
got.
Daniel always jumping to conclusions and always thinking somebody's up to. He thinks everybody's bad but him.
Maybe I should have used a different movie for reference. Oh gosh, who is a character in here that you think might not have been the star, but helped carry the movie along pretty well that you liked? I mean, we had somebody to choose.
RDJ.
Yeah, you had somebody to choose from. You had Downey, you had Burt Young, you had Zabka, you had
Hmm.
you know Terry.
The 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 female teacher, Sam Kinison, was hilarious in it as always.
That I
I was
wouldn't
waiting for
even.
him to start screaming when he came out when they first went into the daggum English class. I was like, "That's Sam Kinison. Yes, it is him." And he was like, "Do it, say it." I was like, "Oh yeah, there it is."
A little bit when he first starts, so he's all calm and everything, and he's like, "Could you?"
Right.
We're talking about the conflict of the Vietnam War and
That's why I
why.
was wondering. I'm
And
like, dude, that sounds like Sam. Is that Sam?
then the girl gives the answer, and you see him start like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
well, that's the answer that a lot of people would like to believe, but
Hmm.
he starts going off on his tangent about it and everything. Then gets in, Dangerfield tries to take up for the girl, and he pulls him into it, and he starts yelling at him and said, "Say it, like you
Right.
said, say it, say it."
I think all the supporting cast was integral in it. I think everybody played their parts kind of perfectly, to be honest.
A couple of names. I don't know if you picked up on this or not. And of course, you said you seen Ned Beatty as the dean. That's his
Hmm.
little bit. You talked about Sam Kinison. Edie McClurg having that little part is Marge Sweetwater. She's the one taking notes for Mellon in class when he wasn't
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Everybody, of course, most people when they talk about her, they talk about Ferris Bueller.
Right.
She also had a
That and
very
the
funny
writer. Who was the writer? Oh man, the writer for the book or whatever
Kurt
the
Vonnegut.
poem.
Kurt
Yeah.
Kurt Vonnegut Jr.
Yeah. Vonnegut. There you go.
Yeah,
He said he
he's
hung out the phone. He's like F me. No. How about F you? He said next time I'm calling Robert Ludlum. I fell out when he said that.
I'm stopping
So
payment
I
on
ain't
the
real
check.
familiar with Vonnegut, but I know Robert Ludlum wrote. He wrote the spy stuff, the Born Identity, and the Born Supremacy.
And you know why? Do you remember why he's cussing him and telling him he's going to stop the payment on the check? Because the
Yeah, because
paper.
she said the paper. She said the person he had the author write the paper on the book, and she told him, and whoever wrote this obviously doesn't have a damn clue who Kurt Vonnegut even is.
That
It's
was
like
awesome.
what Kurt Vonnegut wrote it.
Yeah, that was awesome. I didn't catch this the first time I watched it. Adrienne Barbeau had a part in it. Played the character of Vanessa, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember what I know her from. I think it's one of the Star Trek series. Terry Farrell, was she in one of the Star Trek series? She played Valerie.
I don't know.
I'm gonna check and see real quick.
Maybe.
I mean, I know her from something else, and I can't quite put a finger on what it is. Yeah, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
She played Dax on Deep Space Nine. I knew
Oh,
I
she
knew her.
was Dax.
Yeah, I knew I remember her from something like Star
Okay.
Wars. It seemed like.
I know Dax very well. Oh, that was the girl that he was that the son was talking to, trying to hook up with. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Okay.
her.
I can see that now. I can see that. I wouldn't have noticed it, I don't think, watching the movie, but I can see it totally.
Just out of
So
curiosity,
Dax is the one she wore her hair in a ponytail and she had the dots down the side of her face.
yeah,
Ain't that Dax?
I
Yeah.
believe that was Dax. Yeah, that's why I said she looked familiar to me, but I couldn't quite, figure out if that was her or not. Um, I try. And there's another guy played the role of Giorgio. It's Robert Picardo. I recognize his face. I cannot. I'm checking him out now too. I can't place him where I know him from, but I recognize that face. He is. Yes. Okay, I knew it. Star Trek again. Star Trek Voyager. He plays
Oh,
the Doctor. Doctor Lewis Zimmerman
okay.
is what he plays. And the two people on there go on to Star Trek fame.
Heck yeah.
One Voyager and I mean that's I knew him from somewhere. Anyway, he has a small part in the movie. It's kind of really not that important, really, but he just stood out to me as somebody I knew.
Right.
So the movie in general, it reminds me of several things throughout the 80s.
Hmm.
And then you mentioned earlier going into the 90s, but in the 80s, Revenge of the Nerds for one.
Yeah.
College. Now, only in the sense that they're going to college and that they're a part of the, we'll say, underappreciated part of the, students. Because
Hmm.
it's nothing about making, like the lambda and stuff like that. But I mean, you got the jock who's there trying to get the girl also and be the star of the swim team or dive
Yep.
team. And you got the other guy who's kind of a little more nerdier, and then you got his friend RDJ who's kind of,
Oh,
what would you
he's a
say?
social outcast, buddy.
There you go,
He
social
was he
outcast
was one
more
of
or
those.
less.
He was into activism and everything, man. He was tripping out. I thought his character was well done.
Yeah, and then you mentioned it reminded you of a form of Billy Madison as well, because of course
Yeah, for
Adam
sure.
Sandler going back to school, and it's
Yeah, it
obviously for
feels.
different.
I could totally see where Adam Sandler would have drawn inspiration from this movie for sure.
Yeah, obviously for different reasons, but similar storylines in sense.
Hmm.
So, um, the movie, just like what you think about this, Dangerfield, he's a very unique comedic style. He's
Yeah.
more of the one when you see a stand up comedy, he's all about the one liners. Like we've been throwing them out there, like, yo, take my wife, no, really, take her, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
no
So it was like
respect, and
it was him, and I think another person that was really big during his heyday. It was kind of like I would think of them as the two stand ups going head to head at the time. I could be wrong on this, but I think Don Rickles, it would be him and Don had a lot similar style, but they were around the same time too. I think Don may have been a little
Mhm.
bit older, but
Yeah,
yeah,
very similar styles too. Rickles would pick on people in the audience as well, especially if he was doing a TV
yeah,
thing he was hosting. And there was
hmm,
no, and like nobody would be safe either. He'd pick on
oh
everybody.
no, yeah, Rickles
Um,
didn't care.
no, he just didn't care at all. But
And
as
that's another thing too. That may be because when I was younger, you know what I'm saying. Don Rickles and Rodney Dangerfield. What's the name? All in the Family. I didn't think all that. I didn't think all that
Carol
stuff was all
O'Connor,
that funny. Yeah, Carol O'Connor. I didn't think, which I know he didn't do. I don't know if he's. I don't know if he did stand up, but those types of that type of comedy when I was young in the '80s really wasn't my thing. Which I was probably so young. A lot of it went over my head too. So,
I don't think
but
Carol O'Connor was much of a was really a stand up comedian, but I mean, he did have a very funny character that he kind of perfected in Archie Bunker. Um,
right, and you think you take stuff that I would go back now that's absolutely hilarious, tear down hilarious, like the Bob Newhart show. Oh my
mhm.
God, that's one of the funniest shows ever put on TV.
Carol
But
Burnett.
it was that subtle dry humor. Now I like stuff like Mama's Family. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, what was another one? The sitcom stuff that was out in the '80s.
Yeah.
I dug that kind of stuff, but I guess it was stuff that I'm I got more or I understood better.
Well, with this movie, in your opinion, what made Dangerfield's performance as Thornton Melon so memorable to you? What was it about it that he did
The
that
fact
makes
that
you?
I was surprised with the fact that he wasn't the way I remember him being. I guess because I never did sit down and watch this entire movie, but I remember him just being all, hey, yeah, hey, yo, hey, let me tell you. I just remember the slapstick comedy stuff that I saw, and
Hmm.
it wasn't all the just goofy silliness the entire time. It was goofy and silly, but not to that point to where it was off putting. You know what I mean? Like it was
Right.
smarter comedy than I was expecting. Except when he got up there and did arm farts, I was like, okay, that's why I didn't like this movie
What?
when I was a kid.
What was
You
up
know,
with that? Yeah.
like what?
Is he,
Well, yeah, where did that come from?
he climbs to the top to do the. He's there to save the swim team's hide. He climbs to the top. He's going to pull off the triple Lindy, and he gets
Yeah.
up there and he's feeling which way the wind's coming from. Like you think, okay, well, how's that going to really affect your dive where the wind's coming from? Then he
Hmm.
does the little armpit farts, like all kids get a giggle out of.
Yeah.
But what was the whole point of
But
the?
that
What's
was
that
out of
warming you
nowhere
up for?
too.
Yeah, what's it warming up for when you do that?
Yeah.
It's
It,
just
it kind of took me out of the whole thing there for a second. Like, what in the world? And the way that he played the character, it wasn't as slapstick stupid as I thought it was going to be. It was a lot better than what I thought. And the way he hit his one liners was just it flowed so good in there too. And that's like when he one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, dude, was when he was like asking her out. And she's like, "Oh, I got school." He's like, "How about tomorrow night?" She's like, "I got school, or I got class." That's what it was. Well,
glass.
how about tomorrow night? "Oh, I got class that night too." He said, "Well, how about you call me when you ain't got no class?"
Yeah,
It was like
that's
they
why.
sailed right. I think that's what it is. Was he was selling through the one-liners? It wasn't like they were giving you time to get it. It was like they were selling through them. So it
Right.
wasn't. It wasn't a setup and a punchline real quick for you to laugh at. It was like he was just throwing one-liners out to where, like, if you caught him, you caught him. If you didn't, we was moving on to the next one.
But
Just
that was
rapid
his
fire.
style though. Anyway, really, that was his
Yeah,
style. What he did, even as a comedian, that was his style. He'd throw them out there, and if the audience didn't laugh, he'd keep going to the next one.
yeah.
He's gonna hit with some. He might miss with a few, but he's gonna hit with most of them. And
Hmm.
then that's pretty much what he did. And all. Um, as far now, let's go to the supporting cast for a second. Like we said, great supporting cast. How do you think their performances and everything contributed to the overall humor of the movie? Dangerfield's definitely the king of the comedy when it comes to this movie being funny, but the
Hmm.
rest of them adding to it, whether it's building up the scenario, building up the joke coming up or something.
Right, or like the professor playing the straight man, like when they first went into business class, and he's like, "Hey, you missed a whole lot of things. You got to pay the teamsters and the concrete guy." And
Right.
yeah, you had the people that played the straight bits, and then you had the setup. They were setting it up, and yeah, the supporting cast did well. Uh, that and the way that is a lot of them, like his love interest, the what was she? She was the English teacher, I guess.
Yeah, she was an English teacher.
And his son did the same thing. They didn't acknowledge his wisecracks either. You know what I mean? Like he'd make a wisecrack and they would move. They'd keep it rolling with him. It wasn't like, unless it was something that's supposed to be blatantly, like with the business teacher, that was just supposed to be blatantly at them in their face. They
Yeah.
kept they kept it moving. They kept the flow of the comedic lines going with it. So I think that's the biggest way that they helped.
There's a
Or that
thing
might have
here.
been the writing too. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely could have been. There's a bit here in the little tidbits of trivia where it says during the scene where Thornton is in Professor Turgeson's history class, which is Sam Kinison. Um, Turgeson picks up the desk and throws it across the room while yelling at Thornton. If you look really closely, you can see that Dangerfield is laughing. It says while Sam Kinison is yelling at him, trying to get him to answer the question about the Korean War. It says
Yeah.
ultimately it was left in there because Dangerfield had such a hard time keeping a straight face during the scene that eventually Metter, the director, decided to leave him laughing from a far distance in the final cut. He just like he gave up on it. Just leave it. It's
Just leave it.
fine. Just leave it. His
We're not going to get
character,
this one.
no, his character originally was supposed to be scripted as somebody who was poor, But Harold Ramis suggested that said, no, you got to make him rich. You got to make him obnoxiously rich, basically.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was,
yeah. I don't think it would have worked with him being poor.
no, I don't think the
Because
character
then
would
you
have
had the
come off
dynamic
funny.
with like with Johnny. You had the dynamic of him being like, well, your dad bought your way onto the swim team too. So I mean that added a lot of dynamic to the overall story.
Yeah. Now they mentioned earlier about how great it did as far as the comedy, how much money it made. It was the sixth highest grossing film of '86 and the second highest grossing comedy of the year. Do you know what the highest grossing comedy was in '86?
Eddie Murphy.
Nope, it was Crocodile Dundee. Believe it or not,
Oh, yeah, I can believe that.
it's a funny movie.
But
Definitely
I'm
worth.
gonna have to say, even though as much as I love Crocodile Dundee, if I'm putting it in comedy category, I don't think it touches this movie. There were some moments in Crocodile Dundee, but I don't think it touches this movie.
Yeah. Um, just like, well, since we're talking about the way the different people in the film helped, bring this along, William Zabka, Johnny, William
Hmm.
Zabka says in an interview with the AV Club, Zabka revealed that he tried to make Chaz's character funnier and less of a bully. He said, "So I actually put on a funny walk and I had a scarf a bunch of times. I made him way more funny than he actually turned out in the film. They cut out most of my funny. In fact, the director pulled me aside one day and said, 'Look, we need you to be more like the guy you did in the Karate Kid. You're coming off too likable and funny.'"
Yeah, I see. And that was the thing too, though. You can still see that shining through, though, because I mean, even though he was the bully, and that's why I say he's the bad guy. But then at the same time, I mean, he was a bully, but he was so typical. He wasn't like a "I hate you" bully. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
He was, yeah. Especially with the thing when you take into account too that like they're at a school that they have to get chosen to be in, and they have to have these high academic marks and this and that. So he's worked his tail off, and you know what I mean. Like as you go through the movie, it's like yeah, he's a bit of a bully, but he's not a "I hate you" bully.
Um, we talked about the film and what it does. It does give you more than just a comedy effect. It gives you it tries to depict the value of education, the fact that there's a generational divide because you got the older guy there and with all the kids and everything. How effective or how well do they balance that, you think, as far as the comedic elements of the movie, but also giving you that same picture of the value of the education and the generational divide and things of that nature? Do you think they balance it out
Well,
pretty well?
I do. I think that that was a central theme to the entire movie, all the way through it, because his dad. You start out. That's what you get in the first 5 minutes of the film. You get that, and then you go through that little walk of him going through his divorce or getting a divorce or whatever, into him going to school, and then he's trying to explain to his son how much it means and this and that. Well, then when he joins and he starts using his money and tactics to skate through it instead of doing the work, then his son comes back on him. Like everybody comes back on him, all disappointed with him and upset with him because it's like you're just trying to buy your way out of it. This isn't how education works. So it kind of showed that like even though like money can't do everything. You know what I mean? Like he was trying to
Right.
prove that like, hey, we can skate through this, but it's not truly helping you, and it's not truly helping the people around you. Like you got to do the hard work. You got to put in the work for it to be right. And I think they did a phenomenal job. You may not unless you're asked that kind of question. I don't think that it's something that you would really truly take away because you're watching a funny movie. But if you were to think about it, then yeah, I think that they kept that going throughout the entire 120 minutes or so.
I think they did a good job of balancing everything out myself.
Hmm.
Definitely not taking anything away from it at all. Um, let's see here. I had a couple things written down for you, a couple more to go, just to get your thoughts on. Um, we know the film, its box office success, grossing over 91 million on that 11 million budget. What do you think contributed really to the widespread appeal of it in the 80s? Would you think it's more or less Dangerfield
It's
as a comedian?
it's quintessential 80s. It's quintessential 80s. And I remember, what I do remember of the 80s, late 80s and early 90s, like back school stuff was huge. Back to um, school stuff like as far as like higher learning and Red Dawn and Taps. So all throughout the 80s and 90s, I think anything that had to do with school was was going to do well, just because you know what I mean. That's that age group, teenagers to 20 somethings. You know, the movie going to the movies was a big deal back then. Like it was so much different than it is now. Like now it's like Jesus, man, we got to pay all this money to go to. Back then, shoot, we had dollar movies around here. So like when a movie came out of the regular movie theater, we had a big old movie theater out here off Haywood Road.
Hmm.
So if it had been out of the theater for like 2 months, it came back to the dollar movies, and you could go watch it at the dollar movies, like renting it at the. That was before Blockbuster actually got big out here, out on the Eastern Seaboard. So I think that just the what it was setting it up for success in the first place, and then for sure the star power that you had at the time with Rodney Dangerfield and RDJ. I think that yeah, the star power, the names drew people in as well.
Yeah, I would say the name is definitely drew him in, but he did such a good job of just really putting this movie together. So the one last, well, actually, I'd like to point something out. It's kind of cool. I just noticed on here, Diane's house. That's the teacher when he drops her off at home, right?
Hmm.
And he's trying to get her to set up the date with him again. But the house he drops her off at, that's the same house used for the Doyle house where Jamie Lee Curtis babysat in Halloween in 1978.
What? No way, dude. We're finding these houses. We're finding stuff like that at the same locations all over the place. That's wild.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up, because we usually bring things like that up if you find something cool like that. It's usually a high school we're talking about, but I mean,
Yeah.
Bob Saget was briefly considered for the role of Professor Turgeson before they gave it to Sam Kinison. Danger
That
it
wouldn't
says
have worked.
Dangerfield didn't feel he was hard edged or shocking enough to portray the teacher, so he
Yeah.
suggested Sam
Although in
Kinison.
his older age, Bob Saget,
Yeah,
he, tur-
he got he got
he
kind of
got
raunchy.
filthy.
Yeah, he got kind of raunchy for sure. Um, the room in which Thornton Melon takes his 3 hour oral exam
Hmm.
is the same room in which Alex Owens makes her successful dance audition in Flashdance.
No way.
Isn't that something? I mean, I would never would have picked that out for sure.
Right?
As a place had been reused before or nothing. So that's something else. So we're getting close to the time to go ahead and close things out here. But before we go, I want to
Yeah,
get in
yeah.
your opinion. What do you think is the most memorable scene, or maybe a couple of the most memorable scenes for you from this movie?
I think I don't know why, but one of the most memorable too was when they were breaking ground when they weren't going to let him in college. So basically said, "I'll buy you a building." And they were breaking ground on it, and the guy came out there, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to do the podcast." I'm gonna say he gave a Kamala Harris speech because he was like, he's talking about something about the buildings and the builders and the build the buildings and the building. Like he's like, and I don't, and whatever I just said, we need to thank Mister. It's like
Yeah, right.
he just said the same words like in different ways over and over, and he's like, and whatever I just said, that one was great. Man, it's so hard. It's so hard to pick them out because this was a good one. This one was truly. I can see why it stood the test of time among people's favorites in our generation and stuff too. Because it's like this one's great. Like everything. Like when, like you were talking about when they pulled the limo out and everybody went running out. Every scene RDJ was in with his banter. Uh, Doggone the date was funny. The doggone when his son was supposed to meet him out and they went to the bar and he sang karaoke and stuff. Like it was everything was good. I don't know if I have a favorite scene out of this movie. I really
Yeah.
don't.
He said he thought his dad was studying. He was out singing. Oh, what's the song? Twist and shout. He was out there singing
Yeah,
Twist and shout at the karaoke bar.
yeah.
That was crazy. Uh, yeah,
How
he's
about
got
you?
To me, it's the never ending one liners and stuff. I remember like I said, he's in there, he's celebrating. And the English teacher he's been trying to hit on all this time walks in. He's in a hot
Oh
tub with two
man,
other girls, and he's like,
there was like
so,
4 of them in there.
well, 4 of them.
She said, "Where is he?" And they pulled him up, and he had on like snorkeling equipment. But he was in between her legs. He's like, "No, that's what I call marine biology." It's like, oh my god.
He's talking about how he goes, we can't have a hot tub without Bubbles. Bubbles, where'd you go? Come here.
Yeah.
He's got things like he says, I think I'm attracted to teachers. He goes, yeah, I took out an English teacher. That didn't work out at all, though. I sent her a love letter. She corrected it.
Yeah.
It's just the little things.
He said
like
something.
That.
The one he said about where I come from. They asked for an example of gravity, and a kid threw the teacher out the window.
Right. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, he's nonstop with it.
I'm going to throw out one more piece of trivia for you, then we're going to go and wind things up.
All righty.
Do you remember the opening montage? Of Rodney Dangerfield. Do you remember? There's a scene of him golfing.
Mm-hmm.
In the montage. That was taken directly from his first film, Caddyshack, in 1980.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
That was where that comes from. So if anybody watches it and they're like, why have I seen that before? It's because you have. He just took it straight from the movie and put it in his.
Heck yeah.
So he better get his respect on that. That's all he can say, I mean, hey.
Hey.
Anyways, all right, so we're going to go and start wrapping things up here. It's 37 minutes in. We're trying to keep these things a little shorter these days, and somebody here has got to go in just a minute, I'm sure. So any last thoughts on the movie you want to throw out there before we start putting out social media and everything?
If you're like me, around my age, around young mid 40s, and hadn't seen this movie, or you saw it and thought it was silly and didn't want to give it a chance or whatever, or you saw pieces of it, go back and watch it. This one is phenomenal.
Yes, it's a great movie. It's definitely one of the best comedies of that time frame. We thought we had a good comedy last week when we did Summer School. This really was definitely a funnier movie than Summer School was. Overall and everything, I think, for myself. So, all right, well, we gonna go ahead and wrap this up. We glad that you were able to make it tonight, Travis, and get this in here.
And, thank you. Movie. Yeah, I wanted to do this one. This one was really good. I truly was pleasantly surprised at this one. I didn't think I was gonna love it. I knew it was gonna be funny, but and then also the other thing too was I didn't realize that it had RDJ in it, and that this movie is where you see a lot of the pictures that you see of him from the 80s with the funky hair standing up and all that stuff. Like a lot of that came out of this particular movie.
Yeah, apparently you didn't know several people said you didn't know William Zabka was in it.
I know, right? Yeah, I didn't even notice him too.
You're learning more and more as you go. So
I'm telling you.
Well, if you guys like the podcast today, make sure you do subscribe to us. We're basically found out there at Spotify, iTunes, pretty much anywhere you get your audio podcast at. You can also catch us online on YouTube, where we are uploading all these every week. So make sure you subscribe, you hit the little bell notification to get notified when we put new things out. We do have a website you can watch from as well. You can listen directly in the browser, or if you hit the show notes, you can see the video in there as well. And that's www.retrolife4u.com. If you want to email us and give us suggestions for any future movies you want us to cover that's 1980s, or you want to just email some comments on the movie we watched, that's retrolife4u@gmail.com. So the social medias, we're at Facebook, we're on Instagram, and that's pretty much the two main places you're going to find us at. I don't really delve a lot into the other places too much. Well, we have a TikTok, but I don't get to it too often. So definitely find us, search us out on Instagram and Facebook, and like us and follow us there, and you catch little tidbits of the things that we have on here that we share on there. Travis, do you have anything for us going out this week?
I got a Rodney Dangerfield quote. Let's say if I could, hey, you straighten up like that. I could tell my parents always hated me. My bath toys was a toaster and a radio.